Good morning and happy Wednesday. Today, I'm here to talk to you about episode 2 of Encounter Party. That's right, last night they aired 2 episodes, not just the first, but also the second. When I realized this, I realized I had to make a second video before somebody else did the review, and then they get the credit of being the reviewer. Is that a thing, being the reviewer of this show? Like the capital T? I'm not entirely sure. I'm excited to talk to you about this show today, so let's go ahead and get started. Tommy, roll the intro music! But before we get started, my standard disclaimer. There are things about this episode that I want to talk about. Things that are good, things that are bad, things that I'm really excited to see in the future. As a result, I'm going to have to talk about things that happen within the episode. So there are going to be spoilers. If you don't want to see the spoilers, go ahead and watch one of my other videos. They're worth it. Heck, if you like this or any other video, maybe subscribe to the channel. Hint, hint. Okay, so in the second episode, Murder on Deck, we see the two members of the party jump in to start helping in the investigation, or at least seeing what's going on. Dridian speaks with first mate Tim, while Asher does some wizard shenanigans and starts casting Detect Thoughts on both first mate Tim and the Black Dragonborn Pajaric, who is currently investigating the physical body themselves. What we discover from this first inquiry is that the dead person is a crew member named Hari, who is a top guy, a top man, who basically they work on the sails and such. We learn that Pajaric and first mate Tim, their eyes hurt. That isn't explained quite yet. After they get a little bit of investigation, they return back to their room, and very soon, Flick and Ven are visited by First Mate Tim. First Mate Marcus Tim. I'm going to just call him First Mate Tim. First Mate Tim reveals that he knows that Ven, the human fighter, is a member of the Long Strider organization, and is there to request Ven's assistance in a proper investigation. So, Ven jumps in. The rest of the party members start trying to eavesdrop and try to figure out what's going on. Ven joins the investigation, and we learn a couple of things as he's brought to the body. First, the body of Hari's eyes are completely burned out. We learn that the person who killed Hari is likely someone who is very incredibly strong and has some sort of supernatural or magical powers. This is part of why First Mate Tim wanted to bring on Ven, because the crew members don't have the tools that they would need to deal with someone of that nature. As Ven begins to ask questions, he does discover that there's also a wooden necklace with the body of Hari. There's a clue. And then we also see that First Mate Tim is starting to throw up some weird roadblock, like not allowing him to look at the passenger manifest or whatever's been taken in the hold. Hey, come help us, but don't look at our information, just tell us. Now, we also learned that First Mate Tim believes that a Firbolg named Grabash is the most likely suspect. Grabash has a brother named Gabri who died on the ship fairly recently. We also learn a bit about where we are in terms of geographical location. The ship began in Luskan, went down to Waterdeep, and then now we are currently on the trip from Waterdeep, where the party got on, and they're en route to Baldur's Gate. From Luskan to Waterdeep, Gabri fell overboard and presumably is dead, which is thoroughly upset Grabash, as you can imagine. But for some reason, even though Grabash could have gotten off at Waterdeep, they didn't. So this leads First Mate Tim to suspect that Grabash may be taking some sort of revenge on the top man who he may be blaming for his brother's death. All this conversation, by the way, is happening in the kitchen. The Dungeon Master, Brian, has again taken a player away from the table to have this secret discussion, which, again, I just think is delightful. I think I mentioned that in the last episode, in my last review. After we learn that the Cherry Wind, by the way, that's the name of the ship, that the Cherry Wind is en route to Baldur's Gate, First Mate Tim and then decide to take the conversation to Grabash. We discover that Grabash is passed out on the floor, and he was brought there by First Mate Hari. Grabash may very well be the very last person to ever see Hari alive. A lot thickens, right? There's a discussion between Ven and Grabash. This leads to a brief skirmish, as Grabash seems to be pretty hungover and just not in the mood to deal with this shit or these allegations, which eventually lands Grabash in the brig. Now, Ven admits that he does not believe, after that conversation, that Grabash has anything to do with this. But that doesn't mean that he has any idea who is responsible. So, at that point, everybody decides to finish out the rest of their sleep, and we get to some little slice of life moments between the characters and who they are bunking with. I think one of my favorite moments was Tolo going to sleep, but like circling around on his bed like a cat and then curling up into a big old ball. That was just a little adorable slice of life moments and giving the players a chance to kind of interact with one another real quick. Another weird moment was as Ben settles into his room, we see Flick just sort of staring off and like staring off unfocused to nowhere and sort of glibly responding to Vin, but very focused on something that isn't there. Mysteries upon mysteries, right? As the rest begins, suddenly First Mate Tim is right back, and he's headed to Asher's and Olivina's room to question Olivina the halfling because the crew suspects that Olivina may have a connection to a mysterious person by the name of Trim Thistledrop. That's where the episode ends. Investigation has begun. We're starting to see new layers pop in. This is going to be a good time. Okay, so I want to talk about things that I really liked about that episode. First of all, hey, more Forgotten Realms lore. We know location now where they're headed to Baldur's Gate. The energy was fantastic tonight. I think some standouts for me were Kari Payton's portrayal of Tolo. Kari Payton has made a career off of playing teenagers. He did the Teen Titans version of Cyborg for years, and he brought some of that experience to this role by playing this young Tabaxi, and I think it's just delightful to watch. Something I noticed is that every time anybody in the group rolls a nat 20, everybody gets really energetic and involved. Deep down, I wish my players would do the same thing. Like, yeah, let's get into this, versus the critical hit. Oh, okay, cool. I love the energy. Clearly I'm somebody who enjoys, or at least recognizes the value of energy, so it really helps hook me. Again, the kitchen is back. I love seeing the kitchen. Those missing eyes, they were dissolved, right? That's so creepy. What a cool, creepy moment. I love seeing those little bits of creepy pop in. They did the same thing in the last episode with the Elder Tor. It felt creepy, and I think Brian's doing a great job of just giving us the shudders every now and then. There were a couple of moments where they called out their previous podcast, just making references to one another. Not so much that we couldn't follow along as much as it's just nice to see that there is in fact a cohesion there. These people do know each other and they trust each other, and that just makes it feel more real to me, because that happens at my table all the time. My players constantly reference things that have happened in completely different games, and it felt real to me. Brian showed a little bit of snark in this episode. I like that. At one point, Ned makes a comment that he's happy to just stand back, and Brian just goes, "Cool, see you next episode." Because I'm kind of snarky myself. So, two moments that really got me. I think the dynamic between Olivina and Asher is phenomenal. Asher is usually a very bubbly personality, but when paired up with Olivina, I love the dynamic these two are forming, where Asher just has zero time for Olivina's shit, but Olivina's just being a genuinely nice person. Then the dynamic between Vin and Dridian, oh man, I'm absolutely envisioning a spin-off, kind of like Miami Vice, The Elf and the Longstrider. I would absolutely be there and watch that serial drama of those two solving crimes all throughout Faerun. I really just enjoyed that dynamic. We also, another dynamic I thought was really great that we got to see was Tolo and Dridian. Tolo has this sort of response to Dridian as this like almost like an older brother figure, or like a wise mentor sort of situation. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I really enjoy it. There are other dynamics that have yet to be explored, but I'm really looking forward to seeing those, and that's going to be on my list of things that I can't wait to see. There were very few moments I had with this, although there were a couple. I think the thing that really disappointed me is that as the episode began and they started telling us about, hey, here's what happened last episode, they totally gave it away. They said, and a crew member was found dead. It's like, but we didn't know that from episode 1. Spoiled it right in the recap. Beans. They should have given us a spoiler alert. Yet again, we have another episode that begins with two characters being immediately taken out of play. That happened in the first episode too. I'm beginning to wonder if this is possibly a tactic used by Brian to limit the amount of people talking at the table all at once, which as a dungeon master, I can absolutely see that being an important thing to make sure, like, hey, we're all just getting started. Give everybody a chance to have something to say or kind of show off their characters a little bit. So while it did kind of make me go, I'm also going to be fair and say, hey, there may be a solid reason behind it. And again, it's not taken away from my enjoyment of the show as much as just something that I notice and kind of go, okay. Lastly, this show has amazing production value. I'm not going to lie; it is way better than pretty much any actual play I've ever seen. Certainly better than anything I could produce. But some of the edits, because they're trying to cut it down to 48 minutes, were a little jarring. Like there's one point in which Asher said, "I put my ears up too," and then she stops as everybody joins in laughter. And then once the laughter is done, we're on somebody else. And I'm sitting there going, put your ear up to what? What are you doing with your big ears? Like what? She was putting it up against the door, but it's little things like that that I notice that we don't really get the rest of the sentence. And okay, it's a minor thing. All right, so what am I looking forward to finding out? Well, we still got to figure out who the murderer is. So definitely want to get involved with that. I have a theory right now. My theory is currently the tiefling sellsword that we met before. If we got eyes being burned out, and we've got somebody who they think the murderer is somebody who is incredibly strong. My brain is sort of pointing towards the tiefling mercenary, but that's really circumstantial evidence. I really do not think Grabosh is the one. It's never the first guy, right? Never the most obvious suspect. There's always something more. Questions I have. What happened to Gabri? Like, why he fell off a boat and then his brother stayed? What happened? Like, why did he fall off this boat? I wonder if we're going to get that answer, because I'd really like to understand, like, hey, is there something weird happening on this ship? Something more weird happening on this ship? What's the ship gonna do? We just lost one of the crew members, and they were already stalled out, but now we don't have a crew member, so it's like, losing one on such a skeleton staff. That's got to be a pretty big deal. Let's see. Flick, what is he focusing on? Right, he's sitting in their room, kind of giving some glib comments back to Ven, but what does he focus on? And again, my brain goes back to my theory, and this is just another little addition to my theory, is that he's a warlock and he's secretly communing with his patron. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I want to see some combat, because I want to just start watching every single spell he casts or every single ability he uses and go, is that a bard spell or is that a warlock spell? The moment he says Eldritch Blast, the whole it's all over, right? And of course, lastly, who is Trim Thistledrop? Right? We really just got to see Olavina for like the first time, like really see her interact with some of the party members. She took kind of a backseat in that first episode, but we really got to see a lot of her tonight. And now we're learning about this Trim Thistledrop. Is this like an alias that she uses? Is she like secretly a con halfling or something? I don't know. I think it's really neat. Okay, well, that is my review for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you join me next week when we start discussing episode 3. If you aren't watching Encounter Party, I absolutely think you should. You probably shouldn't be getting all of your notes from me, because I'm not giving you enough. It's a much better experience watching the show. Encounter Party airs, the next episode of Encounter Party will air on Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Dungeons & Dragons Adventures Network. Let me get a date for you so you know what the date, the 21st, next week, the 21st of November. I really just dated this video, didn't I? Okay, well, either way, have a good day, and I look forward to maybe seeing you next week. Bye!